How on earth did you get Cloud motherfucking CloudCuckooCountry?
I'm pretty amazing, that's how.
Well, damn.
Am I on board yet?
Fantastic. By the way, Ninja, you're distant.
Okay, hang on, let me sort out my audio now then.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
You sound amazing, Nick.
Thank you.
Hello.
Sound even more amazing if I was in the recording studios.
I was about to say, this is the only podcast I'm going to say British Ninja and CloudCuckooCountry aren't the best voice in the call.
Am I on board yet?
Yes, you are, sir.
Yeah, you're here.
God, that voice.
I'm kind of upset that we didn't get Aeon.
Oh, outside of getting Anthony C, which is highly unlikely.
Probably not even awake yet.
Oh yeah, no. I was about to say, we just have him read off like freaking a grocery list and I'll get 1,000 views.
To be up in the morning.
You know who's going to be unbelievably salty, Ninja, and I'm leaving this in?
What?
After Keyframe joined, I was talking to Ed, and I was like, hey, I don't need you anymore. He's like, oh, fine, whatever. And Cloud's like, hey, can I come in? I'm like, absolutely. Oh, beautiful.
Nearly the best British voice.
Nearly.
Shouldn't I have an icon or something? I think.
Oh, yeah, I'll get to the thumbnail art now. You wouldn't be a Hitchcock fan at all, would you?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Not strictly speaking, no.
Oh,
Suspense sort of bores me. I hate to admit that to anyone.
Oh, well, you're about to be one of the upset guests I've ever had on the show.
I don't hate it.
I only have the black and...
He thinks he can do better than Hitchcock.
Indeed.
No, I don't write. I think one of the things that bothered me when I was a child, I saw this movie, The Birds.
Oh,
And
God, the bird.
it just...
Oh, my God.
I think you just gave Cloud an erection, Lord.
I was never afraid of them. It's a bunch of birds.
You
What
can
is
honk
this?
at them and they'll fly away.
Really, just particularly
speaking-
menacing foe.
This is what I have so far that's not colored in yet, but this is for your thumbnail.
Speaking of birds, though, do you know what weird headline turned up in my media releases this morning?
What's that?
It was Bird Poo Cools the Arctic, apparently.
What?
I was having a field day with it on Twitter. I was tweeting every single bird furry I knew, including Silverquill, and saying, "Hey guys, we need your help to fight global warming."
It must have been roughly 4 years ago now. There was a news article of scientists in China trying to experiment on birds, so that instead of they pooped soap was the end result. They no longer pooed poo. They pooed soap, and it cleaned the streets.
Oh, my God.
That's the kind of science that you can do when you don't have an ethics board.
Yeah.
This is probably going to feed into the cast.
She said she couldn't get in. Did you graduate yet, Nick?
No, my last year is next year, but I'm already trying to get my first feet in the industry, or my first foothold in the industry.
When you graduate, I'll make sure to rub it into Cider. It's like, hey, Cider, Cloud has his journalism degree from college. He's done with his college. How's that academia thing going?
It's taking longer because it's a double degree. I have to do the science as well.
I was gonna say, you're doing like a sandwich year if you've got a reporting journalism job on the side.
Yeah, this year has been absolutely balmy with the amount of work I've had to do, because I've had like full workload of subjects across 2 degrees, so science and journalism. In the meantime, I'm producing a science show, community radio station, which means I'm spending every week talking with like research scientists now.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it is really wonderful. The problem is that it's bloody exhausting. I'm so glad the semester's over.
So hosting the show was part of your degree? It was part of...
Well, I mean, I don't need to do it to finish the degree, but it's good, to get done, because degrees are cheap now in industries. It's like you go to an employer, you say, "Oh, I went to university, spent 3 years or whatever getting a degree." I'll say, "Oh, okay, but this guy over here has a degree and he's already done some work in the industry, so we'll hire him instead." So I want to be the guy who gets hired.
The latter.
Exactly.
That's the goal.
I have a feeling that I'll pass games design before Cider.
That's really brutal.
What? I'm going next year, this year technically.
I was about to make a dig about Australians and I forgot Cloud was one. I was like, I better shut up.
Ninja's
Make
picture
jokes
is
about
right
Aussie.
next to the bird picture.
Got what the Aussie joke I told the other day was.
Something upside down.
Maybe.
Wasn't that? Hold on. No, I can't remember.
So, what have we all been up to recently?
Working.
That's beautiful. Well, you know what? If Key ever manages to get into the call, we'll friggin' let her slip in. Just do the intro. This is FNGR.
No, go ahead. I just started recording now.
Oh, okay. That'll work. This is FNGR, joined by the following co-hosts. Secret Dreamer.
Hello.
British Ninja.
Hello.
CloudCuckooCountry.
Good day, mate.
Haha, now I don't have to change the banner anymore. Suck it.
He's relevant.
Oh, indeed. He's been on the channel again. And this week's King of Limbo. How do you pronounce that name? I should have probably got that down right.
Illya Leonov.
Illya Leonov. Wonderful. Since we were just talking about studies and whatnot, what is your field of study?
Mine? Well, when I was in university 40 years ago or so, when I was studying geology, I got about 3 years of the degree and dropped out and got married and joined the working world. So I don't really have a field of specialty, I suppose. I own a screen printing business. I've been running that for about 15 years. There's that. I did some work in radio once upon a time, and I worked for an advertising agency that made these awful ad-on hold things. Somebody put you on hold, you have to listen to a damned advertisement. And so, until Pony.
I don't think I've any... Because you're quite the older fellow, aren't you?
Oh, quite.
Yeah, sorry for asking, but I think you're the oldest person I know in the community so far.
Well, I'm the oldest one that I know, but I'm hopeful that there are others out there a bit older. I'm 61 currently.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of like scary, isn't it? Oh, shit. I thought by then I'd be out of this damn fandom. Oh, fuck.
61
No,
you're
you're
fine.
in it for
62,
life.
No.
You're here forever. Oh, I was just going to say, did the voice come naturally as you were growing up? Did you ever have to practice that kind of voice?
No, it's really... I use a slightly different storytelling voice, I suppose, when I read stories, but no, not really. I've been asked to do all sorts of accents over the years, and usually I might do something like, "Welcome to WTBC 1230."
That was a little unnerving.
So, yeah.
Can you do a British accent?
No, I'm incapable.
Oh, yeah, you're already better than that. Don't worry about it.
He's pretty. His
No,
regular
that's-
accent's pretty close.
You don't need it.
No.
Out of all of your years and experience, what is the creepiest thing someone has ever asked you to read?
Creepiest thing.
Nice.
It would have been something by
Getting
Scribble.
right in there.
I've got one that I just did for Scribbler that she'll be releasing probably this month or the next, about a boy who eats his father. They're
Wow.
starving. It's like
Wow.
Oh,
I know what you're talking about.
Secret. You shouldn't.
love
Secret. You're ruining the mood with your enthusiasm. Let the man talk.
I can't wait for Keyframe to join and just be super optimistic.
It's called Pocket Watch. It's just fan fiction of some sort. Scribbler's good at ferreting out these things. That's probably the weirdest thing. I did The Little Mermaid. I don't know if you saw that one, where Lyra is a Kelpie and eats a young filly in the midst of the story, and there's really grisly detail about how she eats everything but the liver. And, yeah, I don't do that sort of thing too often, but once in a while.
Jesus.
Fun.
Besides horror, what other genres are you into?
Horror. You know, the weird thing is I'm not really that much into horror as much as one might think. I have a voice for it, I think. I want to do some tasteful horror that's written well. Like, I've done a few Poes, and Poe is fun to read because Poe has a way of painting gruesomeness with words. And they don't even have to be explicit. He just paints the picture that way. And that's what I want to do more than anything else. Is I want someone to write that sort of quality pony so that I can be doing pony and sort of a horror genre at the same time.
Well,
But I really like, I like anything with, I've got to say that most of what I've done is fan fiction, pony fan fiction, because that's what I'm around mostly. And so I want it to be fun. I like Luna, and Nightmare Moon, good God. It's the best part of the fandom is Nightmare Moon and Chrysalis. And I love the bad girls,
I was going to say, you said that you wanted someone like Poe. This would be probably outside of Pony. Perhaps Cloud could recommend another writer in that ballpark.
oh, bloody hell, I could recommend like a dozen of them.
Let's-
I'd love to hear you read Lovecraft, actually. 'Cause-
Actually did the Call of Cthulhu. It's on my
Oh,
website.
you did?
Yes, it's in
Oh,
my
nice.
YouTube and my SoundCloud. A fair rendition. I was expecting it to sound scarier than it did, but people seem to like it.
I have to ask, do you do commissions at all?
Never have, probably would.
I would recommend it, sir. I feel like there's a big market for someone with your kind of incredible voice.
Oh, that's awful kind of you. I'm not that far from retiring, really looking towards selling my business to my production manager. And so that'll generate some income. And I was hoping to maybe supplement that by doing some sort of audio work somewhere, but I'm not sure what. But yes, I'd like to get into that at some point before I die.
This is such a chipper call. I want to just see you talk to your grandkids.
Well, don't have me. I've got some stepchildren, step-grandchildren. I think.
Indeed.
All of it or just mine?
What do you think of Keychi's valiant campaign against Bronybuck?
I think I don't know anything at all about.
You'll need to fill me in on this too. I have been out of.
Oh, all right, Cloud. To give perspective, I have this corny little channel called Analysis Daily because I'm trying to keep that part of the fandom alive. And I normally just put up a bunch of people. I normally give them like 3 votes to pick different people. And I noticed that no one seemed to care as bad. And I was like, oh, you know what? What if every round I have people compete against each other? And I put Keychi FIM against Bronybuck, and Keychi hates Brawny's guts. Like, she can't stand him. She utterly hates and loathes the man. And she actually went out of her way.
Am I getting my voice actors confused then? I could have sworn that Keychi asked you to do a sort of a quick...
Yeah, no, that was him. This was
yeah, sorry.
And they've gone bitterly back and forth at each other, and it's a beautiful thing. I'd like to take... I'm glad that love and tolerance is dead, and I've added to it through the analysis community.
Why does the analysis community take such a beating? I've never understood that. People want to jump on it.
Because people don't like picky people.
Well, it's mainly because people disagree a lot, because people can't take other people's opinions seriously, or, intolerant people, I guess.
Well, there are different schools of thought on that. I've done some things with the Heroic Review, which is Scribbler's little bit that we do every now and then. And I like to speculate. And I was told in no uncertain terms that that's not what we do here. We analyze. We do not speculate. I like a speculative analysis. That's what I like. What do you think would happen if, blah, blah. But seriously, I suppose part of it is horse fame. People like to slap KP around. And they like to slap Dr. Wolf around. And they don't really get it so much. But, I could understand it, I suppose.
I feel like on that front, analysis, especially in this community, I feel like too many people have put too many rules on things. Like, you have to do an analysis video this way with this amount of jokes or this amount of analysis bits in between. Like, you could do whatever you want for an analysis video. You could speculate, you could make theories, you could do whatever. There's no definitive rule of what is or isn't.
People don't handle variety well, Ninja, that's why. That it's not a brony problem, it's a people problem.
Yeah, it's true. People like their processed weekly analysis. What's your favorite project that you've been a part of then? Like, what's your magnum opus over your career?
That's tricky. I like Past Sins a lot, and it's not so much my production. It was a single voice thing. I didn't have anyone on, but it was the first piece of fan fiction of any sort that I ever read, and I really, really expected it to suck awfully. Even though, and it didn't. It wasn't, it wasn't great literature, but it was certainly a lot of fun, and I enjoyed reading it. And I said, you know what? I think I'll record that. And I had a back and forth with Penstroke a little bit about it, and then operation on my vocal cords, which kicked me out of that project for a while. And I came back with Eternal, which is, oh my God, Eternal is eternal. It just goes on forever. And then I did Past Sins, and I really, really had a blast doing it. But I think probably at this point, working with Scribbler on Apotheosis was probably what I considered to be a high point. It was the first time I'd ever used an outside voice, and I mean, the luck of the first time being with Scribbler was pretty amazing. She can do Luna and Twilight just amazingly well, I think. So I think probably Apotheosis.
Interesting.
So far.
So, you said that you worked in the radio industry. How would you give advice to people who maybe do MLP voice acting and they want to try and take it up to the next level, either doing production or being a part of radio?
I knew some people. That's part of it. So that I was able to go down and hang around the radio station. And one of the problems in the old days, I don't know if it's true anymore, but they used to have a problem with oversaturation in voices. Like if you're doing commercial spots and the same guys are doing the commercial spots all the time, it gets a little muddy. and they like to brighten it up with a different voice once in a while. So by virtue of having hung around the radio station, I got some work that way. And then when I was doing Ad on Hold, I didn't have a decent studio, so I'd go down into the radio station and trade doing ad spots for studio time to record the Ad on Holds for the advertising agency. So there's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I would say go to a radio station and talk to them. You meet the people who are in the industry. Just go walk in and talk to them. They're usually pretty gregarious folks. When I started,
what would you talk to a radio station person about?
Say, tell me about what goes on here and how it works. Show me the microphone. Show me the booth. Just go in and talk. When I started out, they wanted me to become a DJ. At first, when I started talking to them, they say, you ought to get a job here. My problem is I'm boring. I can read ad copy, that's fine. But carrying on a conversation like the DJs in those days did, constantly just blabbing on about things, I couldn't have done that for anything. Didn't have it in me. Yeah. So, it depends on what you want to do. Do you want to be a journalist? Or do you want to be a DJ? Or do you want to be a person who just reads ad copy? Find out what you want to do, but get some experience. And that's one thing. And the other thing I would say is, which is not such a far-fetched thing today, but in the old days, I would have advised someone to get yourself a tape recorder and a microphone and talk and listen and talk and listen and talk and listen and just sort of get really, really familiar with speaking and figuring out how you want to sound. But these days, everyone's doing it anyway. Look what we're doing. This didn't happen.
If you could steal one person's talent, who would it be and why?
God, you put me on the spot with that. Oh, God, it would probably be Van Cliburn. I'd like to be able to play the piano. It's such an amazing thing to me to watch someone who can fly up and down the piano. I don't see how the muscles work that fast. Maybe that. I don't know. Never thought about it.
If you could travel anywhere, where would you go?
Well, that's not too difficult. Anywhere. Right now, I'd like to see the pyramids. I'd like to go there. I'd like to go to Ireland, hang out. But really, I don't know other than that.
Where have you been?
Canada, all over the United States, pretty much that. I haven't traveled a lot in my life.
Where's the worst place you've been?
Probably the back streets of New Orleans on a time around a Mardi Gras where there's a lot of crap going on. And I went down and just got really pissed drunk and wandered around in sections of the town that I shouldn't have been in and saw some things that I don't want to relate. And the next day I found out that someone had been bludgeoned to death with a baseball bat in that very neighborhood. That's probably the worst. I don't go to Chicago, or Detroit and hang out. That's not, there's places I just wouldn't go.
Sounds like you're reading off a horror novel. In all your years, who was your favorite president?
Ronald Reagan.
Oh, okay.
I like populists. I'm not particularly fond of the current populists that we've elected. But Reagan had some sort of a way with people. Even those who didn't like him. He just made you feel like you could do something with yourself. But I don't think we've had a handful of really bad ones. I didn't even think Nixon was terribly bad. He just got caught at something they probably were all doing. And I'm not certain how great Kennedy would have been if he had lived. His death accomplished a great deal. All of his ideals were sort of absorbed into the culture of the country after he died. And I'm not certain that would have happened if he just stayed in office. It's strange.
It just occurred to me the way you talk. You ever watch House of Cards?
Nope. What is that?
Your inflection sounds like Kevin Spacey's president character from there. His death accomplished a great deal.
It did.
Sounds so ominous.
It did sound so ominous. I'm like, my God.
And wait a minute. That does sound like I had something to do with it. I was too young. 6.
You mentioned earlier you got into MLP fanfiction. Was that how you entered the community, or?
Well, my intro into the community came through mostly Second Life. I don't know if any of you guys do Second Life.
I'm familiar with it.
I've heard of it.
It's a virtual community, and it's got a lot of nice tools for creating 3D objects and things in it. I've been involved for a number of years in the furry fandom. I've never been a furry. I've never been one. I know that I'm not because I just don't have the enthusiasm for the the anthropomorphics that they all do. But what I am a fan of is the furries themselves. They're the most fun-loving, crazy bunch of people I've ever met. I remember the first con I went. It was the most amazing weekend. I couldn't have imagined going to a hotel and spending the whole weekend with 100 or 200 or 300 or however many there were other people just fucking around having a good time. It just didn't seem like a thing that people did. And I said, oh my God, I've discovered a new world. So anyway, we had an online version of I was on the board of RCFM, which is Rocket City Furry, and we had an online presence in Second Life, and so I got to know a lot of the people there. We had even built the hotel in there, so I knew my way around the hotel before I ever went. And I met this wonderful girl in there, and her name is Kitty Klein, and I know it's the strangest thing. We have a sort of a really wonderful relationship. I would argue that we're in love, but I know it's a strange thing. It would never work in real life because I'm heterosexual and she's transgender. Difficult to get that word out. She's transgender. So in the real world, in my eyes, she would be a man. But since we never will meet, and I know we won't because she's a very private person, we're able to have this wonderful intimacy. So anyway, by way of all that, she told me about bronies, right? I think it was mid part of season 1, the current iteration of My Little Pony. And I was aghast. What are you talking about? Because I had seen My Little Pony in the 80s, and it was horrid to me. I don't want to step on anyone's feelings here, but those first ponies were really creepy looking, in my opinion. And so I couldn't believe that there was a fandom of grown humans that watched this show. I said, that's ridiculous. And so, but it was Kitty, and I love and respect Kitty. I said, okay, I'll look at it. And the first 2 episodes got me. And the reason they did, I'd never seen this before. I'd never seen a supervillain transformed into a nice person, a nice horse or pony or whatever. I just couldn't believe they'd done it. I said, God, if the writing's like this, then I'm going to watch it. And I just sort of fell into it, met other fans, and before you know it, involved in the fandom. Now, I am a brony. I'm not a furry, but I am a brony. Sorry if that was a bit long-winded.
No, if you...
Yeah, you're fine.
Everyone always points to Dusty Cat as the manliest brony in the world. I think you've just topped him with that.
I had to ask.
I'm like, he could out wrestle me.
Well, you mentioned you're like
in your prime, you would have kicked his ass.
Oh yeah,
damn right I would.
You'd have cut a better promo than him, that's for sure. You didn't consider yourself a furry, yet you went to a furry convention. Like, what more do you need to do at that point?
Well, I think you need to be really interested in furriness, as I call it. I don't know. I would never want to wear a fursuit. I've put one on a couple of times, the hottest damn thing I've ever had on my body. I wouldn't wear that thing for more than 5 minutes. I can't imagine paying $1,500 for one of those things and then actually wearing it. Good God Almighty, it's like torturing yourself. You have to be a masochist to do it. And I'm not, crazy about wholesale about cartoons or anime or any of that sort of thing. And take it or leave it. And so I never felt that I'd really be a proper part of the fandom. To hang around those people and just listen to them be enthusiastic about it and go into the dealer's den and look at all the goodies and all that. It's just a wonderful world. And I like just stepping in and out of it. But brony, that's another thing. When I went to my first brony con, I went to Everfree, flew 2,000 miles to get there. Being in that group was transcendent. It was different. The brony experience was just a lot of fun. But the furry experience was just a lot of fun. But being amongst the bronies was almost like I'd gone home or something. It was an oddly transcending thing. And plus all of the great ones were there, and Tara Strong and the whole lot. They were all there. So that was kind of cool. You don't have that in the furry fandom so much. There's no superstars or anything. What in the fuck was the question originally?
I believe it was you went to the conventions. What more did you need to consider yourself a furry at that point?
Yeah,
I think you covered that pretty well.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I was sitting there thinking about that because I was considering doing a video of explaining, even though they've been done, furry versus brony, what takes this and what takes that, and it's a lot harder to argue with someone who sounds brilliant.
I mean, they're just social labels at the end of the day. They do what you want them to.
Sure. Yeah. But I will say this. at least until a year or so ago, I would have said that the bronies were what the furries aspired to be, because I'd seen a lot of drama in the furry community. I mean, a lot. And I didn't see that in the brony community until about a year ago.
I'm sorry.
Popping up.
Anthony, apologize.
You'll have to work harder.
I was about to say, I popped out about that time. I'm terribly sorry, sir.
It's all your fault.
It is.
That's gotta stand.
Put a reverb on his voice with him saying that.
I was saying to Crowne FNGR that you would make an excellent paparazzi.
I would.
You would. You love this shit.
If you've learned anything from any bad experience, what was it?
That's tricky. I learned about mental health from being married to a crazy wife. And I don't mean that facetiously.
Oh, okay.
I mean that I have a new respect for what it's like if someone is schizophrenic, as she was.
I picked up on your tone on that. My peers, not so much.
I didn't know what he meant. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. It's funny. It's a sort of a funny thing. Mental health is something that we laugh at because we don't know what else to do with it. That and an odd thing happened to me when I was about 20 years old, where I lost my grip on reality, and I can't even explain what it is to do that, to suddenly not be able to realize that you're in a real world. I slipped into this strange state of consciousness where I wasn't certain that anything was real. It was a strangest sort of existential crisis, and it took a lot of work to get out of that place, but it really strengthened my mind, and I gained a whole new perspective then on what it's like to not have all your marbles. I mean, you think, outside looking in, what's it like in that person's head? Well, it could be a very scary place. And having a wife who was schizophrenic for a while and trying to make life better for her and ultimately realizing that I had no power to do so was eye-opening, to say the least. I think that there are just too many stigmas in the world. I think I want to digress into something that may be indelicate. Do you think I can? I mean, we could edit it out.
Oh, that's fine. No, you.
Yeah, you go, man. You go. You know what I'm angry about? The other day, you're like, "Oh no, I'm terribly boring," and I'm like, "Shut up."
Well, okay. Here's the situation. Let's delve into the transgender community for a moment.
All right.
I am in love with one. I have a lot of friends who are. I don't have any reservations there. But I believe that it is a disorder. If you do not identify with the body that you have, then you have a disorder. I, personally, suffer from depression. I take 2 antidepressants, which work fabulously and have pulled me out of that completely. But there's a stigma attached to mental illness. It's such a strong stigma attached to it that if you try to describe transgenderism as a disorder, people have a horrible backlash against it. Like, oh, you've just said the most insulting thing in the world to me. But it's not insulting. I mean, you're not a worse person for it. There's no reason to discriminate against anyone for it, nor is there with any other sort of mental illness. You do what you can to make them comfortable, Yes, let's accommodate them. But let's not run and hide from it because we don't want the stigma of mental illness applied to it, because the stigma itself of mental illness is inappropriate, in my opinion. Too many people suffer it from one degree to another. And that's my soapbox for today.
Scientifically, gender dysphoria is classed as a mental disorder.
Well, it used to be in the previous DSMV. I never can get those letters right, but they've changed it to something else now. It's not called a disorder. It's called something else in the latest. But at any rate, being able to say that you have a disorder, because it's not inappropriate to say you have a disorder, is important. To me, that's what I want to see. I want to see more inclusion for people that may be hiding things about themselves. of anything.
So what do you think about the latest sort of revolution in thinking and psychology, which is that we don't call it a disorder if a person falls into these two criteria. They're able to be happy and they're able to be a productive member of society. So as long as they're happy and productive, we don't classify what they have as a disorder. Do you think this might be more or less useful than how we typically think about mental disorders?
I think it makes certain people feel better about themselves or about what they might think. I'm not sure it's terribly useful beyond that, because I think the problem is in thinking negatively about having a disorder. I don't think that's a negative thing so much. I mean, if you have diabetes, for example, and you have to have insulin because of it, it's not your fault. There's nothing you can do about it. I wouldn't fail to elect you as president, or anything. I mean, it's having things wrong with you. It's not having things, what's a word for wrong that doesn't mean wrong?
Oddities.
Flawed.
Having things which make your life more difficult than
abnormalities.
Yeah.
Things that would make your life a little more straining. Those things shouldn't count against you. So I don't know. Maybe I'm no psychologist. Maybe that is a good thing. But I think just stigmas in general. I mean, what do we need them? Do we need racism? Racism is another one that's fascinating to me, because scientists really don't have a good handle on races. I mean, what's a race anyway? You have some different genetic markers. Where do you draw the line? How much of this do you have to have, and how much of that do you have to be a different race? It's kind of silly classifying people that way.
Well, most anthropologists don't think of race as something that can be scientifically described. They're sort of like breeds of dogs. It's not a scientific term, it's a colloquial term.
So in my opinion, anyone, and this is me, I'm reductive. I tend to be. So anyone who thinks that races exist, in my opinion, by definition, is a racist. That it just makes sense, Okay, you're different from me. Okay, you're a racist. That's all it is, really. I mean, you're just saying, well, that guy's not like me because he's a different race. That's racist. There's extremes you can take it to, but it seems to me that on the surface, just being aware of race is racism to me. I've got a lot of soapboxes, don't I?
Don't we all?
I don't argue with the guest. That's usually my get out of jail free card. Cloud has a podcast. Maybe you want to go in there and argue with him?
Well, I don't want to be boring. I mean, you guys probably want to talk about fun things, and then you and your listeners.
I was mostly listening, Jesus.
Yeah.
I am having a great time talking to you, oh my lord.
Oh, yeah, quick question. How did you meet Secret Dreamer?
Through Scribbler. I meet a lot of people through Scribbler. We have a voice actors Skype group, and Scribbler decides who's in it and who isn't in it, and I have no idea what the criteria are, so don't ask me. But I'll say, I need a Luna, or I need a Twilight, or such and so forth. She'll say, well, this person's good. Try this person. Oh, I just heard about this one. She keeps up with it, sort of thing like that. She has like this sort of Rolodex in her head of all these actors and actresses that I couldn't possibly remember. She recommended Animality, I suppose, Secret Dreamer. What do you want to be called?
Either or, doesn't matter.
She recommended you, and then she even recommended how you should read the lines to the story that I was in. And I was a little bit put off by it, because I thought, well, she shouldn't be telling my actors how to read. And when I heard the lines, I thought, that's not exactly the direction I wanted to take this. But it turns out that Animality was so freaking talented in doing it that it just worked beautifully and taught me a lesson that, hell, I don't know everything about what I want, do I? Because it turned out to be a wonderful, different sort of reading with a hissy, scary, deep nightmare voice. I just loved it. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, you taught me a lesson in that one, and I don't know everything about what I want.
So I know, and you're happy to turn this down if you feel like you've stood on enough soapboxes tonight, but if you could teach, I guess, the younger generation one thing about life.
I try to be a teacher. I think it's important that when you accumulate a lifetime of experience, no matter what it is, even if you're sitting in a cardboard box, you can tell somebody what that's like. I've done that for 40 years. I think I would tell people that you will not have the same mindset in 10 years. And then 10 years later, you might not have the same one you have in 10 years. Be careful what you wish for, because when it comes true, it might not be what you want. I've got the people who work for me are all female, various types of females. About half of them are gay, and they'll get tattoos, and they'll say, "Don't you want a tattoo?" And I think to myself, I can't imagine anything that I'd want to put on my body that I'd be interested in 10 years. I mean, what do you choose? I can't. You're going to change your mind a lot. You're going to be exposed to things that are going to make you think differently. Don't set yourself in stone. That's I think the best advice I could give anyone. Expect the unexpected.
I guess some of the more fun stuff. What would you say is your favorite part of MLP? Your favorite episode, character?
The introductory episode would be hard to beat. I'm oddly enough not a particularly great Discord fan, though I am a fan of John Delancey. I've met him and talked to him. But the character's a bit too chaotic for me. I like predictable things a little bit more. But he did so wonderfully in that Changeling one that they just did that he's almost changed my mind about that. That was a great episode. My favorite episode was probably, I don't do well with names, the one where they all had the wrong cutie marks for a while until Twilight solved the riddle. What was the name of it?
Oh,
the Alicorn.
You mean the one
Twilight
everyone
Corn
hates?
appeared.
I heard all of that. What was the name of it?
It was the cutie mark. No.
The end of season 3.
Magical
it's the end of
Mystery
season.
Cure. I'm pretty
Well,
sure
anyway.
Magical Mystery Cure.
Yeah, that's it.
Magical Mystery Cure. That's the one. Now, the reason I like that one so much was because, and people said it felt rushed. Well, it sort of was. It was pushed. But they did it at a musical rate. It was the most, to me, that was the music episode. If you wanted to point to one and said some music. I liked all the songs in it. It just had this quality that pulled you right through the episode from one end to the other. I just absolutely adored it. I like anything that has Luna or Nightmare Moon in it. I couldn't have been happier in that last season finale they had before this season, or the part of the season where the Trixie's friend, who is that?
Starlight Glimmer?
There you go. I can't get Starlight, Glimmer, and such and Shimmer and all that. I get those names confused all the time. When she took it, when they were going through time and they were solving these scenarios that she was setting up, and I was kept saying, "Let there be a nightmare moon. Let there be a nightmare moon," and there was.
My word.
I have a 2x2 picture in my den, and I have one in my bedroom. And Nightmare Moon is the last thing I see every night when I go to bed.
So if I ever wanted to butter you up, I'd get your OC summoning Nightmare Moon. Gotcha.
You're damn right. Yeah.
Well, I know some really good artists, so
Yes.
I wouldn't mind getting you owing me a favor or reading or whatever. So we'll see.
The committed thing you get Crowne Prince to animate.
I did literally, while I was muted myself, I was like, my God, you should hear the person we're talking to right now.
May I say an oh shit?
What?
I have misspoken. There was one episode that I tell everyone when I talk about it, that it is my favorite episode of any television series ever.
Wow.
And that was Luna Eclipsed. I must have watched that 20 times, and I usually don't watch them twice, but I don't even know why. It was the first one where Luna came back when Twilight used the elements of harmony on Nightmare Moon, and we didn't see her for a while. But, I was like, oh my God, I want some more Nightmare Moon, or however I can get it. And then they gave us a whole episode of Luna, and it was just, I was in love from that point on. I'm in love with a cartoon horse. What is my future going to?
And I thought I role-played too much. Have you, I'll ask this for Cloud and you, have you ever prank called using that amazing voice of yours?
I don't do this sort of thing.
The one time I tried prank calling, I accidentally called my friend's house, and their parents called my parents and let them know that I was prank calling. So then they confiscated my phone.
That's
It
rough.
didn't work out so well. Yeah.
I suppose the closest thing I've ever done was I wanted to hear a song that was being played on we had a black radio station that played mostly African American pop, soul, and that sort of thing. And I don't remember what the song I wanted to hear was, but I called up the station and tried to act like I had a black accent so that he would play the song I wanted.
Oh, please. Please, can we hear your black accent, please, sir?
Oh,
I'll tell you what, to make you feel better, Silverquill did a black accent once. You can't be that bad.
Oh
Well, the guy obviously wasn't fooled. He said, "No, man, I can't do that." He was just like, "Get out of here, you stupid fool." I felt really, really, really stupid. Really stupid.
Sometimes do this because this is what I do. Sometimes affect an accent whenever you're talking to a stranger. So it's like, I'm not going to see this person again. I might as well just speak like an Irishman.
I'd love to get a recording of freaking Cloud doing an Irishman just for the hell of it. Is that Cloud? Absolutely not. He doesn't do shit like this. Are you kidding me?
There was.
Go ahead.
There was an amazing. Not really a documentary. It was a YouTube channel that does vlogs, and it was of this, I think, Japanese boy who obviously went to the United States to immigrate, and he faked a Japanese accent throughout the entire year. And he could speak English perfectly fine, but just for kicks, he decided to fake a Japanese accent. And then on the last day of his year or semester, he goes, "Oh, thank you for everything," and then just talks in a normal accent afterwards, and everyone is so shocked and amazed. It's a fantastic video.
That's wonderful.
But no, go on. Sorry.
I was just going to say that I tend to pick up accents of people that I'm around a lot. I used to work in a laboratory. One of my first jobs when I got married and left college, I worked in a water quality laboratory for 8 years. And there we would have people in. It was run by the state. We would have people in, and they would train under us. Of course, I was just a bench technician. I wasn't a chemist or anything. But we'd have to go out in the field and collect samples, or, I'd be hanging around. They had these two girls from Thailand, and they had really thick accents. And I don't even remember what the accents were like now. It was something like this, when they talk. But it had a sort of a real sweet doll-like quality. And I sort of picked up on it. And I didn't really mean to, but after a while I was sort of talking with a Thai accent. When they left, they were there for about 6 months, and when they left, they came to me and said, "We are so glad you were here, because you are the only one we could ever really understand well." Which I thought was kind of fun. Just because I was trying to sound like that. I don't know.
Well, you must have done a great job at it then.
Well, I guess so. I mean, it's almost an insulting thing to do that with someone, I think, though. But I guess people don't mind, I suppose. I don't know.
I have a feeling that if it's all in fun and they're in on it, then sure.
They were wonderful people. They were the most gracious people. And I remember we had someone over from Ireland, and it was a beautiful lass. Oh, God, a beautiful blonde lass with green eyes. And we went out on a boat together and spent the day. And despite all of that, and as beautiful as she was, when she told me about Pancake Day, all I could think about, oh, God, I'd like some pancakes. That's just... I'd never heard of Pancake Day. I said, oh, my God, a day devoted to eating pancakes. I could do that.
Oh, fantastic thing in Britain.
That's the most American thing I've ever heard.
Did they celebrate it in America?
No, just the fact that he's sitting there with a hot girl and he's like, and all I could think of was pancakes.
She was so beautiful, and I was thinking about, oh, God, I love this woman and everything. Then when she spoke of Pancake Day, and just everything else went out the window.
Watching the sunset with a beautiful woman, all you could think of was pancakes. That needs to be animated.
That sun, it looks like it's dripping with butter.
Cloud, please tell me you're going to get this guy for a reading someday, somewhere down the road.
Yes! Good God, I got Crowne Prince to do a reading. I'm getting this guy.
Well, you got Silverquill to do an erotic reading. I definitely want to see what he'll do for you.
Yeah, I'm trying to steer clear of some of that.
No. It was done in really, really good mirth.
But I did. Do you guys know Wooten?
Yes.
Yes?
Okay, well,
Mr. Green Text Man
tends to gravitate to it. When we were first starting to read, he had me do a bit of narration for one of his anonymous things, and I'm always afraid it's going to see the light of day someday. It's been like 2 years. I live in fear of that thing coming out. Some of the things I said.
All right, so I'm going to talk to Wooten later.
Try to do something, he's like, hey, look what I got.
Friendship is blackmail.
You guys know Pregnant Shy, right? The thing KP released 3 months ago.
Pregnant
Oh,
Shy?
God.
Oh, yeah, Fluttershy's baby. Yes.
Guess who did the narration for that?
You.
I'm sorry, Cloud. I did mention that when I had Anthony C on to talk about that. I was like, Cloud told me this, and this. And Anthony C's like, oh, no, Cloud never complains to me about anything. And I'm like, well, I don't know why I would complain to you about it. You weren't the one in charge.
He was the one who tipped me off that it exists, and then I ranted at him for like 5 minutes about how I hate everything about KK.
Anthony C might be the biggest troll in this entire fandom.
Maybe.
But yeah, I understand how you feel, man. Wishing that something that you contributed to never comes out. I've been there.
So you were one of the people who actually... So you must have been one of the people who actually wanted Fluttershy's baby to stay off YouTube.
Yes.
I don't have everything against. I've certainly enjoyed my share of porn over the years, but I don't want to be thought of in that way. I don't want that. I don't want that to be my legacy.
Okay, timestamp about 1 hour. Okay.
Send that to Vida.
Get your OC redesigned to look like Larry Flint in the wheelchair.
A mouthful of soda.
I'd like to say I did that on accident, but I didn't.
No. I see your OC here, and normally when you think of alicorns, you do think of sort of these big and wise voices, and you know what? I think your voice actually suits an alicorn design rather than just a regular old unicorn. I know, I just think it works. I think you have a very well designed OC.
Oh, you're talking about the little
purple guy,
icon. That came from my second line.
Ninja, do you know who he'd be great to voice? You've ever seen DBZ Abridged?
Ah, yes.
Super Kami Guru.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
I learned the other day that's Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
I'm not stupid anymore.
I remember one of Silverquill's old jokes where, of course, Silverquill has never seen Pokemon in his life or never played the games that much. So when Zach jokes about Pokemon, Silverquill's just like, oh, I'm old. I get that sort of kind of vibe here.
An artist that I used to employ, she had a son. One day he brought his little Pokemon book to work with him, and I leafed through it, and I couldn't believe the dribble that was in that. Pokemon met such and such character. They had a fight. He leveled up. Pokemon met such and such another character. They had a fight. He leveled up. I mean, that was the whole book. It was that he fought somebody and he leveled up. I said, what are kids thinking when they read this? It's not the Dick and Jane that I had. I don't know anything about video games at all, except for the Myst series and the Rim series.
Not enough kids read nowadays. I didn't read that much growing up, although I've started to now. But I feel like there needs to be a bigger push in reading.
There's so much else that gets in your way now.
It's almost like you'd need a YouTube channel for that sort of thing. Yeah, I know. Everyone go down to CloudCuckooCountry's channel. There'll be a link in the annotation.
I'm not sure that everyone appreciates the romance of it anymore, of getting a really, really engaging book and sitting in a darkened room with a light over your left shoulder and just engaging yourself in words, not in sounds. It is a transcendent sort of thing, and I think that's why it's endured as long as it has.
That's how my mom wound up with glasses.
Well, I think I'm out of questions.
I don't have anything that could follow any of that. They're all stupid and retarded questions that I'm not going to bother with.
I like stupid and retarded. That's fun.
You know what? We'll have you back as a co-host or something. Believe me, we will use you again, sir.
If you'll be up to it, of course.
Oh, absolutely.
Time I can be of service. I'm sorry I forgot about this one today. Something in my mind said that, well, we've decided we'll get in touch when we're going to do it.
No, sir. This was beautiful. 10 out of 10. All right, I'm going to stop the recording unless... Cloud, did you have any questions?
Oh, I guess I could. I was like, do you prefer the old classics, or are you a fan of contemporary fiction as well?
I think I probably prefer Tolkien to anything in the world. I did read the Paolini series, the dragon thing, Aragon, yeah. But I sort of like that sort of thing. And I recently read Lolita, which is a Nabokov, which was a fascinating work. I'm surprised that it got published. Almost didn't. But, I don't read a lot of what's been published in the last 20 years now. I'm like everyone else. I've got other things to engage me with.
All right. We'll wrap it up there on that note on Lolita.